Last week, the Florida Supreme Court gave Democrats a 2024 boost by allowing a 6-week abortion ban. This week, they got joined by Arizona. Welcome to MOMocrats MOMochat, part of the Demcast family of podcasts. I'm Donna Schwartz Mills with Karoli and Aliza Worthington of crooksandliars.com. And all the stuff we were talking about last week, we're still going to be talking about this week.
All of it. It's all part of the whole deal. It's Republicans just seem to have a real problem right now when it comes to abortion. It's a bad problem for them. It's going to be a great problem for us politically, but it's a bad problem for us too.
It's a bad problem for us.
Terrible problem for us.
If we have a medical emergency and cannot get health care, it is a problem for us in that OBGYNs are leaving red states. Yeah. It is a bad problem for us if we have daughters and nieces and sisters and granddaughters. I mean, this is not a good thing. No. And it's really funny how belatedly the Republicans are realizing it is not a good thing. At least some of them are. For Carrie Lake to be walking back her remarks when she was running.
I thought that was a joke. I thought that was like like some kind of satire.
Like, is there nothing that she won't lie about? Is there just nothing that she won't lie about? That she's got ads. She's got all over the place. I'm, completely pro-life, 100% pro-life, blah, blah, blah. And then her state institutes, a Civil War era abortion ban. And she's like, well, maybe not. I mean,
it went back to the 1860s.
Yeah.
Back when women couldn't vote and slavery was legal. And
well, slavery had been abolished by that point, but yeah.
In Arizona?
The Emancipation Proclamation.
But the Emancipation Proclamation
was a territory.
Yeah. Right.
So, but I mean, that's neither here nor there. It's just that era. Right. I mean, to reinstitute a law from that era is bizarre. It's utterly and totally bizarre, but it tells you, I mean, where they want to go with this. They want to be extreme. They forget what they say. They lie. I mean, and that's what Biden has done such a great job of putting Trump in a box with this, because Trump came out with this statement about how it should be left up to the states, but blah, blah, blah. And then maybe I'd support a 15-week. But, he just totally whiffed on the whole national abortion ban thing. And Biden's team is like, oh, no, you don't. Yeah. And they're like putting out all these statements where he's bragging about getting rid of Roe, and where he's just a liar. And Biden is framing him as a liar. And it's great to see him do that, because that's
it is great.
What he should be doing.
They're being super aggressive about using his own words against him. Him taking, you can thank me for overturning Roe versus Wade. That, I did that. That, and it is, he will not be able to get away from that. Nor should he. And
nor should any other Republican.
Nor should any other Republican. And it is just astonishing to me that they claim to be pro-life. Meanwhile, they just executed somebody who was convicted in 2006.
Yeah. That's the hypocrisy all around. That's what they do.
and the life of the mother in all of these abortion bans is completely peripheral to the conversation. And it is so appalling. It is these mother, we talk about the OBGYNs leaving the red states. there, you know, if you have a kid who goes to school in these places, if you have a son who goes to school in Arizona or Florida, they better be prepared for fatherhood. And if you have a daughter, or you know, if you have a kid with, you know, ovaries and a uterus that go to these schools, they better have enough money in their, you know, in their accounts to fly to hell home or fly to a neighboring state that has these services. God forbid, in the event of an emergency, what do you do if you have an ectopic pregnancy? What do you do if you have a miscarriage? Do you get on a plane while you're in the middle of a miscarriage and fly?
Or a bus. You know, they recommended buses too. That's
Oh,
sarcasm.
sure. Well, but no, they'll only get a free bus ride if they're if they're, you know, like a migrant that Greg Abbott wants to send out of the state. That's, you know, that, it is just, you know, it is so gross. You know,
It's inhuman, is what it is. I mean, this is men trying to control women and some complicit women going along with it. But this is about men controlling women. I mean, and it's only a question of time before it's, you know, birth control and IVF and then no fault divorce. I mean, we said this last week too, right? I mean,
yeah,
they
well, no fault divorce is already in their sights. They're already talking about that. Some of the absolute like wingers, you
there
know.
was somebody who got caught in a no fault divorce. Oh, somebody in Texas. Who was it? There was somebody in Texas, I can't remember who it was, who was whining about, you know, the fact that his wife filed for divorce and he was, dang it, it's right on the tip of my tongue. A real wingnut too. Well, it'll come to me. We
Yeah,
won't wait.
some of those same people are talking about, you know, our right to vote being, you know,
Oh,
they're
that
they're
too. Yeah.
they're flexible
Yeah.
on that, you know.
Well, there's a wingnut pastor out there who thinks women shouldn't vote because if women vote, we won't have a Christian country. Don't try to
Well,
explain it. It can't be explained.
you
It's
know,
just absolutely
who
bizarre.
wants to tell them that we don't have a Christian country?
Well, this is exactly
It's
right.
not a Christian country.
Right.
You know, but don't bother, you know, who wants to muddy things with facts, you know.
God forbid.
So, oh, sorry. My alarm, I have an alarm that just went off. So it is just like, if it wasn't so terrifying, it would be comical. And it's, you know, they literally want the horse and buggy days, you know. And Jasmine Crockett was so great in her questioning of the guy from the FDA. Was
Hmm.
that today or was that yesterday when there was a hearing on mifepristone? Um,
I think it was yesterday. Yeah.
And, you know, she made the same argument that I've made 10 years ago when I went in front of just a regular old doctor's office and I was holding a sign that said, "Don't get Viagra." And I was trying to, like, you know, can talk to men who were going into the doctor's office. Are you getting Viagra, sir? Don't get Viagra. It can hurt you. It's bad. It's bad for you. You might get a 4 hour. Why are you going in here, sir? Are you going for Viagra? And I did this whole thing on, like, and they were like, what the fuck? And there's the first fuck, and for the show. And, you know, she was saying, she said, she asked, I wish I could remember who the FDA guy was. Is there any life-saving use for Viagra? Can you think of any situation in which the use is life-saving?
And he said no.
He said no.
There's no way that, yeah. And
And
then
and yet the um you know, and then she asked, of course, you know, he wouldn't answer the question about whether there was life-saving use for mifepristone. But then she said, I can tell you as a woman and as a woman from Texas that there are life-saving, of course there's life-saving use for
So
mifepristone.
she
Right?
even referred to research with, I mean, it wasn't just her anecdotal. She said there's research that shows that it's
20
life
years, decades of research that shows the life-saving. And the thing is that, like, I want to address like another aspect of the mifepristone objections that Republicans and the GOP raise. Having to do with is it the Comstead or Comstock
Comstock.
Act? Comstock Act,
Mm-hmm.
which is that you can't send anything obscene through the mail, right?
Right. So then you have to define how it is that mifepristone is obscene.
Mifepristone is obscene.
But the
Viagra is not obscene.
Viagra,
Right?
you probably can't get through the mail either by the way that they have defined. You know, the whole reason why mifepristone can't be in there, because it says that anything that could abort a child is included in the obscenity part of
Right,
that.
but Viagra
But
doesn't.
Viagra can't abort a child. Viagra facilitates the creation of a child.
That's why it probably should apply.
So what I want to say is that I interviewed a woman, an artist named Joyce Scott, who's got something at the BMA, at the Baltimore Museum of Art. And her parents were sharecroppers and her grandparents were enslaved in, I believe, North Carolina. And her parents, took part in the Great Migration North and landed in Baltimore. And she's an amazing artist. But one of the things she talked about was the fact that, she has many pieces and installations, collections of pieces that have to do with depicting lynching and rapes. And she said that one of the things that stuck in my head is how she talked about the fact that thousands of white people would gather on a hill and bring picnic baskets and bring their children, move their children to the front so they could see this form of entertainment. This was a form of entertainment for them. They would take photographs of the lynchings and turn them into postcards and send them through the mail.
Yeah. And you can still find those postcards on eBay, by the way.
And those postcards I don't know when the Comstock Act was enacted, but those postcards somehow aren't considered obscene.
No, they're not. But I mean, that's the whole hypocrisy of that Comstock Act. And that's why, honestly, one of the first things that Congress needs to do when we Democrats get, both houses of Congress back in November is repeal the Comstock Act, because it's not relevant anymore for exactly the reasons that you just described.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what's obscene? What's not obscene? Who's going to decide what's obscene? Right? Is Penthouse magazine obscene? That gets sent through the mail? It did. I don't think they are around anymore, but when they were.
We had a whole Supreme Court issue on that, and the Supreme Court couldn't define it.
Right. And I guess that's my point, right? Is that there's no way to define it, and they're going to try to use the Comstock Act, and it should just be irrelevant. It should be repealed. Absolutely should be. And if they're reaching for that as a way to ban mifepristone, we need to make sure that they don't get to that point. I mean, that's just seriously, like, that's somebody with too much time on their hands trying to figure out a loophole where none exists.
It's just a twist. It's a perversion of the law in so many ways.
Yes, it is.
So anyway, look, I love the way the Biden-Harris team are just hammering not just Trump, but a lot of Republicans on this whole thing. and I hope no one
Media
falls for it.
team, Biden's social media team is so on the job. They're amazing.
Yeah, they are, but their media team in general is, and their message, which is being hammered home through the social media, through regular media, through ads, through appearances, right? And Kamala Harris has been all over the place on this. Is basically that this is Trump. He is the architect of this chaos, and because he appointed and he promised to appoint justices that would overturn Roe. And so don't let him weasel out. Don't let him, like that weasel statement that he made on Monday or whenever it was ridiculous. And the funny part of that was everybody hated it. I mean, not only on our side of things did we hate it, but boy, did they hate it on the other side.
Oh, why? What was, I missed the statement.
So the statement was basically him saying that the states should decide, right? And essentially ducking that. He didn't actually say that. What he actually did was duck endorsing a national abortion ban. Like the statement that he made suggested that he was willing to leave it up to the states, when in fact he's not willing to leave it up to the states, when he does want to
sign that in a hot minute.
Right. And so Mike Pence went after him right away. And yeah, I mean, it was like all the evangelicals, the white Christian nationalists were all jumping all over him for that and very disappointed. And then, on the other side, of course, we're like, what the hell, you've made this chaos well,
you made this chaos, and the states are deciding. The states are deciding that there should be no. First of all, the states can't decide if there's going to be a national abortion ban. That's just like stupid talk, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's the states can't make law for the country, right? But if you give the states the chance to decide on whether or not they want abortion, the states have been deciding consistently when it gets on the ballot that they want access to safe, legal abortion care.
And that's the one that gets on the ballot part that is the key in that phrase, because if the Republican legislature, they're willing to, put in 6-week bans. They're willing to put in, whatever they have, with 6-week ban being an effective ban altogether. Right. And everything. And I still wonder why we're not pushing more on HIPAA as a national law against this, because there's no way you know about this stuff unless you're violating somebody's medical privacy.
Right.
And so I'm not sure why we're not. There must be some provision in HIPAA that is a loophole. That's the only thing I can think of, because nobody is talking about it. Nobody whatsoever. So anyway, but Trump may be the only Republican who knows that it's a terrible issue for him. And that's why he's trying to elide it, is because he knows that if he actually has to own it, which he's gonna, because Biden and Harris are gonna make him own it, right? It's going to be a dreadful political cost for him, as it should be. So, okay, Aliza, I can't hear you. Okay.
So, talking back about Trump did this. Trump did this with the help of Leonard Leo, who just is refusing a subpoena that the Senate Judiciary Committee issued to him. Like, he's a rich guy. He doesn't have to be there.
Wow. Well, that's something. I mean, I don't understand that. I don't understand how, when Peter Navarro is serving time for defying a congressional subpoena, that Leonard Leo thinks he can do this and it's okay. I don't get it. I mean, this is billionaire entitlement.
Probably feels like he's responsible for half the judges on the bench, and they won't do anything to him. Oh, Aliza, we can't hear you.
Where did your audio go?
Okay, so I've been muting myself because I've got construction going on in my house, and Aliza is not meaning to be muted. Karoli, it's going to be the Karoli show today.
oh boy, I can listen to myself talk all by myself for, hopefully Aliza's sound will come back. And actually, I only hear a little bit of a din behind you, Donna.
Really? Because
Yeah.
they are making noise and they're talking and they're getting work done. And
So let's talk about something good like Biden and his fundraising numbers and I don't know if you noticed, but after he had that big fundraiser with Stephen Colbert and Clinton and Obama, where he raised like 26 million in one night, Trump goes out and says, I'm having a fundraiser too, and I'm going to raise $50 million in one night. And nobody can confirm that he raised any money, honestly. I mean, he says, "Oh yeah, we raised 50 million," which tells me that they didn't. They didn't raise anywhere near that. But it's hilarious to have him, to watch him just like, "Oh, I could have a fundraiser too, just like you did." And anyway, and Biden's got a ton of money and he's spending it wisely, like we said last week. And Kamala Harris is all over the place. So she's been to all the key swing states, and she just keeps making the rounds of those. Oh, there goes Aliza.
she's coming back to try and get her sound back.
Yeah, that's weird. It just like went off all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, they continue to do well in the fundraising and department. And here she is. Now she's back. There you are.
We can hear you now.
We can hear you now.
But she looks frozen.
Okay.
Yeah, her jerky. Be sure you've got everything else closed.
You look frozen.
I'm not.
Okay. Right. Okay. As you were talking about how awesome Kamala Harris is.
Connectivity issues.
Thank you. my conversation with myself except when Donna jumps in. So we could talk about Congress and all the things they're not doing.
Well, they did manage to get FISA renewed today, but only for 2 years instead of 5.
So I just want to say that nobody likes FISA. I mean, I remember everybody flipping a biscuit out, over it when Obama was in office. And it's not a popular bill. Nobody likes it. And yet it's indisputably saved us in national security situations. And one of them being, I think you may have heard that Biden warned this week that Iran may be trying to attack Israel in the next few days. And his words for that were don't. But I obviously can't speak to where he got that information, but I would bet dollars to donuts that some of it was confirmed and or first heard about through FISA eavesdropping.
Sure.
So whether we like it or not, it's a thing that we need to do. And the whole idea that Trump's going to say, get rid of FISA because of Carter Page, and they're just going to do it is like, what is that? And in fact, it was exactly so it forced the Democrats to have to vote for it to get it passed. Because, national security seems to matter more to Democrats these days than it does Republicans.
Yeah.
And yet, out of habit, I guess, public polls still ding us on that. It's ridiculous. I mean, I know you saw this too. This was in the Hopium newsletter today. But what Congress is going to be voting on the floor next week, what's on the docket is HR 6192, the Hands Off Our Home Appliances Act, HR 7673, the Liberty in Laundry Act, HR 7645, Clothes Dryers Reliability Act, HR 7637, the Refrigerator Freedom Act.
Oh my God.
HR 7626, the Affordable Air Conditioning Act. HR 7700, the Stop Unaffordable Dishwasher Standards Act. These are all sponsored by different people different right-wing Republicans, and all of them are because they don't want us to have standards that lower energy usage.
Well, there's that, and there is also how many times has Trump bitched about it,
Right.
but yeah. And if you look at the acronyms for some of these acts that they're talking about, they're super cynical. Okay, so let's talk about like the Refrigerator Freedom Act, which would be the RFA, which we also know as the Religious Freedom Act. Right. And the Affordable Air Conditioning Act, which you could say is the ACA, right? And AACA. I mean, even the acronyms are cynical and
Stop
stupid.
Unaffordable Dishwasher Standards Act of SUDS. Got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there no, let's see. There's got to be a KKK act in there somewhere.
Not yet.
Oh,
Give them time.
I'll come up with one.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like I know this is not what this act is about, but I'm sure it's not what it's about. But, I do think air conditioning needs to be affordable for, like, the people who live I know people die from, in places like Arizona, Texas, and Florida, whatever places.
Pretty sure that that's not for those
I'm
people.
guaranteed that's not what that's for. But, it is, the rest of it is such bullshit. It's all bullshit, I'm sure, but like, yeah, I mean, like, okay, yeah, I want everyone to have air conditioning, so they don't, die in 120-degree weather. But
yeah,
I'm sure that's not what it's for.
Well, I'm sure it's
bullshit.
Freon in air conditioners as opposed to any other, Freon that pollutes.
Right, that might not hurt the planet as much. Yeah, it is.
But I mean, it's all cynical. That's the thing that drives me crazy, and that's what makes me want to like put a fist through a wall. Sometimes it's just that they are so cynical that they think this is actually work, that we're paying them for this, and they think they're righteous in doing it, and it's just. And it's aggravating. By the way, I just have to throw one thing in before we go on, and that is it was Steven Crowder, right? The right wing so-called comedian who was complaining and whining about the fact that his wife got a no-fault divorce from him. So and he was
he wanted to blame her. He wanted to.
Well, no, he didn't want her to get divorced. And I mean, she left him, I think, because he was verbally abusive. I mean, if you read the divorce papers, he would like leave her with the kids. She had twins, and he would, like just shove her out of the way and leave and never say where he was going. Stuff like that.
In the bad old days when we were children, you had to have a whole case to get the divorce.
Yeah.
You had to prove mental cruelty. It was a big thing. And then no fault divorce came in, and now you don't have to go through this whole big trial to be able to get divorced. And that's what they want to get rid of. They want to make it harder for women
to leave their men.
Right. That's exactly what they want. And they want it to make it easier for men not to have to pay child support.
Right.
And, on and on and on.
And to beat their wives without...
when they feel like it. And my mom went through one of those trials, and I was there at the end, and because even the property settlements are a mess. It's like, even if they grant the divorce, then you have the stupid property settlement. And this was back when women couldn't get their own credit cards.
Right. Which wasn't that long ago.
50 years.
Yeah.
50 years. I just got like the credit card that I want. I've always wanted. At the American Express Platinum card. So, and I would never have gotten that.
Yeah.
Right.
I would never have gotten that. So
where are we going?
Right?
She's going to go to an airport lounge is what she
That too. That was one of the reasons. It's like hard to get into those lounges without one of those special cards. But this was not an ad for American Express. They did not pay for that.
No, that Karoli pay through the nose for that, because that is an expensive card.
It is. But so anyway,
do some more traveling, Karoli.
I plan on it. So So anyway, but the thing is, women had no, that's what they want to do. I mean, they want to go back to those days, and those days are recent enough that I remember them, and I don't want to go back to those days.
No. But this is the world that they are trying to recreate.
Right.
And this is why we're fighting so hard. I think it's kind of funny how all of talking about the cynicism of the Republicans, they seem to think, like they always project, and they seem to think that the entire electorate is as easy to manipulate and as dumb as as the conspiracists on their side, you know?
Absolutely, they do. And you know what? To that point, I want to think that the electorate is not that dumb, and they've proven themselves not to be that dumb in the off year elections that we've had, and everything, the turnout. But I do worry. I read Reddit just sometimes because I don't want to read Twitter. I want to read other things, and
Reddit is a good site.
I ran
In the right
across.
places.
Right. I ran across a post that was like, it was from a millennial, and it's like, why are boomers so obsessed with Trump? Was the question. And but it wasn't like obsessed in a good way. It was like,
No.
my parents are boomers and all they do is talk about what crap he is and, blah, blah, blah. And it's so stupid. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, I'm not sure I can, like, there's times where your finger just itches to reply. And I didn't.
Yeah.
If I had, it would have been, maybe your parents realized that democracy is, that the whole foundation of our country is at stake until somebody drives a stake through his political heart. It's
Well,
that simple.
Do you guys get David Pepper's newsletter?
I
No.
don't. I just went through my Substacks because I get so many of them that
Today he had one where he talked about how he gave a talk in a college class back in 2016. And he talked about how what they were seeing in the 2016 election wasn't normal. And one of the women in the class raised her hand and she said, to us, this is all we've grown up with. This is our normal. And so that kid who was complaining about his boomer parents is coming from a point of view where he's never known politics, where, you didn't really pay attention except on Sunday. And there were 3 news shows on Sunday, and everybody would talk to each other in calm, civil voices. And then you wouldn't think about politics again until the next Sunday.
Unless it was an election year, and then you'd
Right.
have more. It would be more.
A little bit more.
That's true. And I'd also like to add to that when we put out last week's show, I sent it around Threads and Blue Sky and Twitter with the, like I quote tweeted and said, basically, you can have a civil discussion about the Middle East. Because I felt like we really did a good job of being civil and listening to all sides and having a decent discussion. We didn't fix anything. We didn't solve anything, but all of us learned something, I think, from that. And so I got some replies back that just were so disheartening because they appeared to be from younger people who were like, well, good for you that you could do that. But, you're a better person than I am. I could never do that. I'm thinking to myself, if we don't learn to discuss differences, if we can't model that and discuss differences of opinion without screaming at each other, how do we ever get out of this rut that we're in? We don't have to be Fox News. We don't have to be nasty to
You don't have to be Donald Trump.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I just wanted to add that in because I felt like I do feel like the electorate as a whole is rightly engaged in these things, but I also feel like there's some poison from TikTok and some active measures that are going on online and offline, by the way. I think a lot of the screamers that you see at Joe Biden's, where they're screaming genocide Joe at him, I think are part of that active measures campaign. Not all of them.
The particularly the young, pro-Palestinian movement since October 7th is one of the most low information movements I have ever encountered. They are not stupid kids. They are not dumb people, but they are the lowest information people when it comes to the thing they appear to be passionate about that I've ever encountered. They don't care. Which is what made me say last week that the root of it is anti-Semitism. That what they want is an excuse to be angry at and express their hatred for Jewish people. And not that Israel is made up exclusively of Jews. We've said this before, at least 20 to 30% of people of Israelis are not Jewish. But it is so apparent and so easy to demonstrate, with very few exceptions, that those people who are screaming genocide Joe know absolutely nothing. If you ask them what the river to the sea means, they'll tell you the Mississippi River they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They do not know. They don't know anything about the wars. They don't know anything about the Second Temple, the destruction of the Second Temple. They don't know anything about the Dome of the Rock. They don't know anything about the Balfour Agreement. They don't know anything. Anything. And it is gross. And it is just their, it is performative activism. And it is driven by anti-Semitism. And I am telling you that as a Jewish person, because we know when we see it. And I am tired of being told that it's not that, because every other group, every other marginalized group, we have been fighting for every other marginalized group to be able to define their oppression and to be believed when they see it and sense it. And somehow when Jewish people are raising their hands and saying, that is anti-Semitic, that's anti-Semitism, it is rooted in anti-Semitism, it has shades of anti-Semitism, we are told that we're wrong. And so that doesn't somehow apply to us, which is why so many of us feel like we have no political home on the left. I refuse to make a political home on the right. I don't give a shit how much Ben Shapiro knows about Israel and the history. I don't care how great a debater he is. I will not take up with people like him just because he is saying correct things about Hamas. Nobody should.
Well, he doesn't have a home on the right either, because
but you know what I'm saying.
They don't really support Israel for the right reasons,
right? And I'm just, it just kills me. It kills me. And for months, I have been asking people, why are you trusting Hamas's numbers on casualties? Why are you trusting this 30,000 number, or how as it's grown? Why are you trusting this? Why are you trusting numbers that come from Hamas and not numbers that come from Israel? Israel's not even putting out numbers.
That's why they're trusting the ones from Hamas.
Right.
But why do you trust Hamas, who is a terror organization and has a vested interest in ginning up your passionate sympathy? Why? And when they are clearly, the most, willing and gleeful and committing the most gruesome crimes against Israelis.
I think that we can't agree that there are a lot of people dead And the relief workers who are not associated with Hamas are warning that there's famine coming, if not already started. I think we can trust that.
Well, fine. Let's trust that, and let's also agree to the fact that there have been aid trucks going into Gaza from Israel that are being hijacked by Hamas. So again, how is this? These problems are the making of Hamas.
Absolutely.
So again, it is, why are people mad at Israel for this? And then there's something that came out. I gotta find it.
Well, while you're
Anyway.
looking for that, my response on the why are people mad at Israel for this is,
Well,
number one, that it's being framed that way. It's being, I mean, the
I want to
press
talk about some headlines.
is framing that way. So that's one reason. Reason number two is because Netanyahu is the problem. He is the one they're focusing on, not all of Israel. I mean, I think if you interviewed people in Israel, they would agree with you that it is Hamas, and they would also ask, they would also ask whether or not there was another way to settle this. I mean,
Right.
and I'm like, when I hear, for example, for the fourth time that Hamas is walking away from negotiations where they can't even produce 40 hostages just to maintain negotiations, and none of that is breaking through, right?
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Anthony Blinken is finally saying it at press conferences. He's finally saying it. He's finally saying, why does Hamas walk away from these negotiations? How many times? How many proposals has Israel agreed to that Hamas has said no? So many. Okay,
Because
so here are the numbers now. Gaza Health Ministry has now admitted that the total death count stands at 21,000. An estimated 13,000 of those militant are from IDF estimates, which means only 87, not only it's terrible, nobody wants civilian death. Only 8720 have been civilian deaths. So, which means the current combatant to civilian ratio stands at under 1-to-1. According to the UN, civilians usually make up around 90% of casualties in war. That's according to the UN. Okay,
yeah.
and as anti-Israel as you can get. Okay, so that's a 1-to-9 ratio compared to the IDF's 1-to-1. All right, and yet there's all this, and this is from hold on, I have to put my glasses on, sorry. The Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. So the other, but I mean, one of the things that was in Karoli, that was in the Slack for Crooks and Liars, was this New York Times headline that said how the Israel-Hamas war has mobilized the left, as if it was like glorifying, how great the left is mobilized. I don't know. It was just something like that. And then there was another one in the Washington Post. I don't know if you've heard about the professor at Berkeley, the law professor, constitutional law professor at Berkeley, who hosted a dinner in his home for law students who had graduated. Have you heard about this? Evan Chermovsky, I think his name is. I'm probably getting
Erwin. Oh,
Erwin
I know what you're talking about. Chemerinsky, yeah.
Yeah. And his wife hosted some law students, and he's had protests outside his home before because he supports Israel. He supports the existence of Israel, but not necessarily the Israeli government's actions. And he had these students over at his home, for a celebratory dinner for their graduation, and several of them are are I believe they're Arab, and were trying to sort of to take over and dominate the discussion with anti-Israel talk. And they had been asked to leave after however much time that they'd been asked, maybe 20, 30 times to leave, and they refused to leave. And the professor said, "This is my home. This is not a public forum. Please leave my home." And they wouldn't leave. And the way the Washington Post headline writers decided to frame this was that professor confronts anti-Israel student for their, to frame it that he's the aggressor.
The Washington Post has been terrible since they got their new editor in chief.
Awful. Yeah.
So this is terrible, and as if he was the one. And this is a guy who, that same student, by the way, circulated a blood libel cartoon about this professor. A professor, circulated a cartoon of him holding a bloodied fork and knife over a baby. I mean, I'm telling you, it was just, she had, and he had the graciousness to still invite her into his home. And then she did this and wouldn't leave, along with a few other people. And he's painted as the aggressor. So I would like a word with the people in the media. If Jews control the media, we're not doing a great job of it.
We don't.
Yeah, I mean,
we're
that's
doing
the problem.
A shitty job.
Maybe if they did, we'd have their headlines.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, they've all been bad. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The media is doing a terrible job. And why on earth are they not hammering home the fact that there's been intense negotiations and Hamas is the one who's walking away? That's I don't understand. Because that to me, if you want to go out there and shout Genocide Joe, then you have to work on the assumption that Joe Biden and his administration are doing absolutely nothing to rectify the situation, when in fact they're working overtime to do it, and it's Hamas walking away from the table every single time. And that's and this week, with the admission that they couldn't produce 40 hostages, right? I mean, the people should be on fire about that.
I think what Donna said probably a month or so ago is really hitting home with me, when she said that, just like when we ripped families apart at the border, we, Trump just let them go, didn't keep track, doesn't care, what happened to them. Nobody knows where they are. I think you're absolutely right, Donna. It never occurred to me that was the case with some of them, but I believe with a lot of them, I'm sure you're right. I'm sure you're right, Donna.
It's been 6 months. It's been 6 months, and
yeah, you're right.
They didn't value those people's lives anyway. And we've been finding out the people that we thought were alive were dead and had been carried over, their bodies carried over, just for the cruelty of it.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel that the way the war is being conducted is not getting them to the goal of getting the hostages released. And maybe it's time to try something else. And maybe that's why they withdrew from the parts that they withdrew from this week.
Who withdrew? Israel?
Israel.
Yeah. I mean, that's entirely possible. I don't know.
Maybe Bibi is feeling some pressure.
I hope he's feeling some pressure. There were demonstrations, all last week against him again. And
I think also that it's important that we acknowledge that Israel is putting pressure on him, right? And nobody's putting any pressure really on Hamas, right? And they have the PR on their side because of active measures, because of everything.
I'm sorry, what did I say last week?
Right? Yeah, no.
Why is it on
I don't
us
want
to break
do
this
this all again, but
I mean,
but
that's
yeah.
You're
So
exactly right.
But I mean, even getting back to domestic politics in our younger generation and the active measures, today there were more college loans forgiven. All over my social media, I've seen people just, people that are well known. One woman who I've followed forever, she's an attorney, and she's like, "Oh my God, it was $80,000. I thought I was never ever going to pay this off, and it was forgiven today." And yet we still have young people saying that Joe Biden didn't keep his promises to us when he has been working, every single.
So I would want to engage those young people and tell them that number one, the SAVE plan is for them, right? If they don't, if they didn't get their loans forgiven because they weren't in one of those categories and the Supreme Court turned down the $10,000, then go sign up for the SAVE plan where you're only going to pay 5% of your income. And after a certain amount, and the interest is going to be held so that you're not going to be in a situation where you're not paying down principal. I mean, I would want to engage with the ones who I have not seen a lot of people complaining about student loans lately. I feel like that. But
I've seen the Republicans complaining, and then again, that's where the Biden team has been up there, like showing, who got their PPP loans forgiven.
Exactly. They're doing so well with the hypocrisy. It's like almost it's fun to watch. I mean, it's really.
I mean, but Republicans are complaining, and but I haven't seen a lot lately of complaints about student loans. I feel like that is being laid to rest with the SAVE plan and all the forgiveness that's been going on. And the best thing about the forgiveness is they can't challenge it because it's existing law. It's law that was passed when George Bush. Look, I'm talking with my hands again. It's law that was passed when George Bush was president. And so he's just fixing the systems that weren't fixed so that they work. And forgiving. So the new stuff that came out this week was that for people that have been paying for a zillion years and still have interest like they're never going to get ahead of.
Right. The interest is compounding so that it's even more than the original loan.
Right. So they're forgiving the interest. That's a BFD. I mean,
it is.
Yeah, that's not nothing.
Right.
The fact that I keep seeing, AstroTurf ads on MSNBC
you guys froze on me again.
I'm seeing some pixelation going on. Anyway, I've been seeing a lot of those kinds of things.
I have too, and there's a lot of astroturfing going on and stuff, but I don't think people are really paying attention to those ads. I'm going to be interested to see how the Senate handles. I'm going to change the subject.
We've only got a few minutes, so let's change the subject.
I'm going to be interested to see how the Senate handles Marjorie Taylor Greene's impeachment management of Alejandro Mayorkas. Right? Like even Joe Manchin is rolling his eyes, right? I mean, he's like, what am I doing? Why are we doing this? I think Chuck Schumer is going to just dismiss it. That's what I think is going to happen. Because it's a way. This is not a legitimate impeachment.
No.
Chuck Schumer is good for a few things, but one of the things I think he's best for are his facial expressions. And I am just dying to see the look on his face when he receives these articles of impeachment. And
with
I just
Marjorie
can't
Taylor Greene marching over from the House, leading the.
the memes, the gifs are just going to be epic. I mean,
Yeah. The whole thing is such, again, it's so cynical and it's such a joke, right? It's like you impeached, President Trump, so we're going to impeach, Alejandro Mayorkas. And one of the things that did succeed with this, and which drives me crazy, is that now instead of the economy being like one of the top issues for people, immigration is. Right. And that's all because they keep hammering this on Fox News. They keep hammering, Trump.
We can never get away from this pattern, even though we understand it so well. But
Right.
it's the gatekeepers on the mainstream media that are allowing that to happen.
Right.
yeah.
Right. And they're picking it up. I mean, this goes back to the Fox effect. Okay, no more talking with my hands. I'm trying.
Okay.
Do like you did in the Princess Diaries and tie your hands up while you.
Yeah. Right.
Or maybe that was My Fair Lady. I don't know what it was, but
Anyway, I mean, so the Fox effect is basically that it bubbles up from the right wing blogs and podcasts and everything. And Fox News picks it up and they amplify it and they amplify it and they amplify it over and over again. And I mean, if you've ever watched Fox News, they have a theme of the day. And whatever that theme of the day is, they just hammer it. And then Fox Business picks up on it. Right. And then because those guys are picking up on it, the other cable, CNN will pick up and do a story on it. And so will MSNBC for that matter. And then Stephen Colbert will mock Fox News. And so will Jimmy Kimmel, and it's nice that they're mocked, but by then the message is out there. You know what I'm saying?
if only we had people mocking them in real time.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, that's what we try to do is we don't mock them, but we try to, point out that this is just bullshit that nobody
We need a daytime late night show, like the Letterman show was at the beginning.
True. We do.
It was before its time.
Yeah.
So we just have a few minutes left.
Can we talk
How'd
quick
that
about
go?
the trial on Monday?
Oh yeah,
Monday. Oh my God.
jury
It's
selection.
happening.
It's happening though. Yeah, jury selection is happening. And I guess one of the questions is, have you ever been part of like the 3%ers, the Oath Keepers, Antifa, or somebody, a bunch of others? It's like, yeah, good, cool.
They also want to know where they get their news. So
right, and then also, I guess Trump wants like all the firefighters and police and stuff like that. Yeah. So
it'll be
He
very
wants them on the jury or not?
on. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, because they skew conservative.
Right.
Yeah.
And live in Staten Island. So
he's so afraid of this trial. He is just ranting about it on Truth Social. It's just,
isn't it delicious?
And that's what makes it so wonderful. Like he tried 3 separate times this week to postpone the trial. He sued the judge. I mean, just like throw the spaghetti on the wall and see if it sticks kind of stuff. It didn't stick. And now he's, on his way to trial on Monday, although somebody said maybe he can appeal to the Supreme Court. And I'm like, why? I mean, what do you have that you could possibly
appeal?
Yeah. And the immunity isn't gonna, like somebody said, well, he could probably maybe claim that the immunity claim in the Supreme Court should be heard before this case. But this all happened before. It was when he was campaigning for president. He wasn't president yet. So no immunity. No. Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, this could be like the actually most significant trial that there is, even though the other ones maybe address deeper issues. This one is pretty deep too, because it is literally election interference. What he did, he suppressed information from the public that would have made a difference on their vote.
So what is potential jail time if he's guilty? Let's end on that.
What is it, like 4 years per count?
Yeah, something like that.
31 counts.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that is a beautiful thing to end on, you guys.
it is.
We will be talking about the first week when we see you next week.
That's right.
Join us on YouTube, MOMocrats.buzzsprout.com, or on your favorite podcast service such as iTunes, Google, and Amazon Music. And be sure to check our Facebook page for updates. I'm Donna Schwartz Mills with Karoli and Aliza Worthington saying goodbye for the MOMocrats. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
MOMocrats MOMochat is part of the Demcast family of podcasts.